Hey, I'm Jeff and welcome back to another video. Have you ever had a propagation fail or simply just rot? I know that's probably the case for most of us at one point or another. I often get that question, people asking why their propagations rotted or why they're not successful. So I'm going to show you how I get an almost guaranteed success rate with my propagations for my houseplants. Right now, I primarily use two methods to propagate my houseplants, the water propagation and my super successful perlite prop boxes, which I'll show you guys here in a little bit. Just like with houseplants, if they don't get the right conditions, then they're obviously not going to grow and thrive, and they might actually decline and end up with rot. Propagations are no different, so I'm going to show you the requirements that they need in order for you to be successful with your propagations. Here's all my current propagations. I got some rooting in water, got some nice water roots right there. Same with these guys. I'm rooting a philodendron fuzzy petiole. And then here's my perlite prop boxes. Got some nice propagations in both of these boxes, which I'll run through here shortly. Here is a hot little tip. If you're having problems rooting something in water, just add a pothos cutting in there. Pothos actually release a natural like rooting hormone that helps stimulate faster and stronger root growth. So yeah, just a hot little tip right off the start here. If you're having problems rooting anything in water, just add a single leaf. Let's see if I can get one out here. Just add a, oh my goodness, everything's falling apart. Just add a single node and leaf cutting, and you'll eventually start to get some roots on whatever it is you're having difficulty rooting. See, you got some nice water roots right there. The first and probably the most important thing for propagation success is light. We all know that houseplants photosynthesize in order to produce energy for growth and root development, all that kind of stuff. So they use sunlight, water, nutrients, and carbon dioxide to produce energy for itself. Propagations are no exception. They also photosynthesize, pushing out new roots and even new growth. So that's why sunlight is extremely important for your propagations. They can't be tucked away in a dark corner or like under a table or anything like that. Put them in a bright sunny area. I have mine on my floor, probably about 2 feet back from a south-facing window. They don't really get any direct sunlight, maybe a little bit in kind of the later afternoon, but nothing enough to scorch the leaves or anything like that. So put them in a bright sunny area. If you don't have a bright sunny area, then you can also supplement the natural sunlight with grow lights, which are extremely effective as well. If your propagations aren't getting enough light, there is obviously the chance that it's going to rot. And I want to use the comparison as in wintertime for houseplants. They're not receiving as much sunlight as they would throughout the summer, so their growth is slowed. So ultimately, we slow our watering routines as well. If we kept up with a regular watering routine throughout the winter, as the plant is no longer growing, it's not using all the water and nutrients and that sort of thing, everything with the plant slows down. So if you're continuously adding more water, ultimately you're going to get that root rot situation, and propagations are no different. If you're not providing enough sunlight for those propagations to photosynthesize and develop those roots and new growth, then they're simply just going to rot in whatever container they're in, water or perlite or sphagnum, whatever it is you're using. That's why propagations rot. They're either not getting one or more conditions to sustain that growth. So sunlight being one of them, you have to make sure that they're in a bright sunny location. The next, and I'm not going to talk a lot about it, but humidity is extremely, oops, I just tipped over my hygrometer here, but humidity is very important for propagations. It speeds up the root development. I'm going to show you one crazy propagation here in a second, but for the most part, you want the humidity ranges in between kind of that 65, 75 range. That can be achieved by using a clear container like this Tupperware container I bought from the dollar store for like $2. You can see I put my hygrometer in. The humidity is 72%, 73% in the box right now, so that's ideal. The way that I know my humidity levels are okay is you will often see some condensation on the sides of the container. If you no longer see it on the side or on the top, then you know that the conditions are too dry in the container itself. And then you can just add some water, or I like to just spray or mist the perlite, and that solves the problem pretty quick. I will never have any standing water at the bottom of the container. I will always drain out any excess water. It just leaves it open to rotting situations. I will occasionally, probably maybe once a week, just open the lid briefly, and then for like 5 minutes or so, and then I'll close it up again. Otherwise, I don't have any holes or perforations on the top. I just place it back in its sunny spot, and it knows what to do. It'll grow the roots. So just be patient and just kind of leave it alone, and just occasionally check on it, make sure it's not drying out too much. Okay, now I want to show you something absolutely nuts about humidity. I bought an Anthurium regale earlier this year, and it was propagating in water. I put it in soil. Long story short, it rotted. I chopped up the stem, and I put a few of the larger chunks in the perlite prop box here. And this just absolutely blows my mind how light and humidity can help a plant along. Here is one chunk, and it's getting, or it has gotten a new leaf. There is not a single root on this chunk. There is no roots, but it has an absolutely perfect, gorgeous leaf. And clearly I didn't know what I was doing because I cut through, almost halfway through the growing eye. I really didn't pay attention to it. I just started hacking it up with a utility knife. Yeah, there's no roots, nothing on the bottom, there's nothing on the sides. It is solely supported from the high humidity and the sunlight, which is absolutely nuts. And it's just a perfect leaf. Now the other cuttings, I don't want to leave it out too long. The other cuttings, it has one giant root and no growth. It's actually supporting a little moss system there as well. I've been trying to keep an eye out for growth points. I don't see any growing eyes. I don't know what this is. I think this is going to be another root. There's a growing eye. Looks like I chopped through that. Again, not knowing what I was doing. But this is clearly something's happening. I hope I get a new leaf with this one. And then I have one more big beefy guy here. I don't know if that's a growing eye up there. It doesn't really have anything yet, but it looks like something is starting to poke through right there. So I don't know if that's going to be a root or if that's a growing eye. I'm not entirely sure, but maybe something poking out through here as well. Maybe a root coming through, but just absolutely crazy. The trunks themselves, they're still very firm. Nothing's rotting on them. So I'm just being patient with these. And I'm going to take this out now, but because I have it open. But yeah, that is something that just absolutely blew me away. I accidentally broke the root tip off earlier today. Just I took these out just to have a peek at them. But yeah, this just blows my mind. Now I'm going to show, I guess, some other propagations that I have in here. Now I'm probably going to get a question of there's standing water on the leaves. I just misted this off yesterday, and I did leave the lid open a little bit. I haven't really found, or I haven't had any issues with rotting in my perlite prop boxes at all. I've only ever had one propagation out of probably, I don't know, 50 different types of plants that I've propagated in perlite. The only plant that has never rooted for me is the philodendron golden goddess. I tried taking some propagations off of a plant. Those ones have never rooted. They have always rotted for me, and I don't know why. They've rotted in water and they've rotted in the perlite prop box. Otherwise, quite literally everything else that I've placed in here has gotten roots, and they get roots really fast because of obviously the high light, but the humidity as well. Here is a philodendron fuzzy petiole. Look at these roots, just roots everywhere. Hoyas are particularly good at rooting in the perlite prop boxes. I highly recommend it. If you don't have a perlite prop box and you propagate plants, I highly recommend perlite prop boxes. They are super successful. Like, look at these roots. This Hoya has been in here for quite a while. I'd say maybe 3 months, maybe 4, but just, yeah, awesome roots. And the nice thing about perlite, compared with sphagnum moss, I don't like propagating in sphagnum moss at all. The benefit to using perlite is there's really no transition period. If you just pot this up in some soil, it's in a nice airy coarse mixture, so as long as you put it in a nice airy soil mixture, you're not going to have any transition shock or anything like that. Whereas if you have like a water propagated cutting or even like a sphagnum moss, you might have a little bit of a tough transition just throwing it right in soil. I find that's not the case when you have perlite. You can quite literally just throw it in some soil. Yeah, just make sure it's a nice airy mixture and you won't have any issue with like transition shocks. I have just some random stuff in here. Here's another Hoya. This is the Potsy, I believe. And again, they just get gorgeous roots. Here is, I don't even know what this one is, another Hoya. Got a few Hoyas in here, got my another philodendron fuzzy petiole, and then my anthurium regales. I have no idea what this little guy is. I just threw in a little wet stick. Again, look at these roots. Ready for soil. It's getting a new leaf. I do not provide any nutrients in here. I don't add any fertilizer or anything like that. It's just simply perlite, and I just wet the perlite every once in a while with a misting bottle. I'm not too sure what this is. It looks like maybe like a a global or emerald pothos, but yeah. Anyways, I'll show you since I'm going through these, I'll show you the next box. Here's my other one. If you guys saw my epic fail with my jade satin scindapsus, go check out that video if you haven't seen it. But here are the cuttings that I did put in soil. Oh my goodness, look at these roots. Initially I put these cuttings in soil. They weren't doing good like quickly. They were starting to curl. So I tossed them in this perlite prop box, and look at these roots. So these have been in here for probably 3 weeks, getting a little bit of rot on this leaf right here, just the tip, nothing too concerning. Here's the other cutting. I haven't looked at these. Okay, yeah, look at these roots, crazy. This right here is a philodendron snowdrift. When I got it, it declined really quickly. It started to lose a few leaves, so I pulled it out of the soil, and look at this tiny little stem, just puny. So yeah, obviously it got root rot really fast, and look at the newest little root popping through right there. So I'm extremely happy that it is rooting again, and it's actually developing a new leaf while in this box as well. So this is going to be in here for quite some time. I want a large root system on this before I put it in soil again. It's just a very small cutting, but just absolutely gorgeous. Wasn't cheap either, but well, it wasn't really like that expensive, but so again, I just make a little hole. I just put the cutting in. I try and keep the leaves off of the perlite as best as I can. Just something like that, just prop it up. Otherwise they do fine, there's no rotting issues. I haven't lost any leaves since putting in here. So yeah, more Hoyas. Here is a Hoya fungii. It's been in here for a while. The leaves look a little bit messed up, but that's normally caused by a low humidity issue when they are developing new leaves. So I don't even know what this is. Well, it's another fuzzy petiole. Got a few cuttings in there. Yeah, I think that's a little Syngonium green splash that rotted for me as well. Getting a new little growth point, and it's got a couple nice roots on there as well. So those are my perlite prop boxes. Everything is doing really well in there. So yeah. Along with light and humidity, temperature is actually another really important factor, and just regular house conditions is usually okay for propagations. I've never really had any issues. So right now my house is 22 degrees Celsius. I use Celsius, I'm in Canada, but the temperature ranges for optimal growth. I have my little book right here, is between 22 and 25 degrees Celsius and 73 and 77 Fahrenheit. If you're someone that uses an air conditioner to the like meat locker status, just be aware that that might be causing slower growth with your propagations. And again, just like the lack of sunlight or lower light scenario, if you have cooler temperatures, your plant's not actively growing as it would if it was in a nice, hot, warm, sunny location, so it's probably going to be a little bit slower. If you have that high humidity with that slower growth, you might get some rotting situations. So just be cautious that temperature does play a factor in that. Now, it's not so much the air temperature that's important, it's actually the soil temperature. If you have like an air conditioner running and you want your propagations to be successful, you can use a heat mat. It's a really great way to speed up the process of germinating seeds, also propagating houseplants. You get faster root development when you have a heat mat. This is mine right here, and I run it 24 hours a day. I just leave it plugged in. It's a nice warm temperature. It doesn't get like hot for the plants, like the pots aren't hot, but if you feel the bottom of the pot, it's definitely warm. So that's just a nice growing environment for roots to develop in. I have my larger anthurium here, as well as a few other colocasias, as well as my alocasias. They absolutely love it. I do have a couple little alocasia corms growing on the heat mat here as well. So yeah, this one I just took this is the Alocasia sinuata. I propagated it from a plant upstairs. I'm going to lose this leaf right here, not a big deal, but I'm using the heat mat to stimulate new root growth so that it can sustain larger, more leaves in the future. I do have a little thermometer. I'm just curious to see what the temperature is of the heat mat. Let's maybe not set it to the body setting. Let's do, okay, it's not working. Okay, now I have it to the surface temperature. These aren't wildly accurate, but it's saying it's around 39, 38, 37. So it's in the high 30 range for sure. And yeah, so far all these plants. This was an Alocasia corm as well, I do believe. This is the Regal Shield. I took a little corm out of the soil. I have another one here as well. That's not on the heat mat. Here is my Alocasia gaggiana. This thing is just pumping out new leaves. I've probably had it for like maybe a month and a half, and I think it's gotten these 3 leaves since owning it. It's only lost 1, and it's just absolutely gorgeous. Loves this spot, so I'm just going to keep it here. So yeah, this is just a little trick if you want a little bit more heat to the soil. Oh, there's a dead little ladybug back there. Are you dead? Oh no, he's going. Hey, little guy. Just having a nice little snooze on the heat mat. Oh yeah, let's go. Let's go. I've been putting this little ladybug in with my anthurium here. There we go. I know I'm going to get some questions about perlite, so I'll just address it now. The reason why I use perlite and the reason why I think it's so effective is because of airflow. It is nice and chunky. It holds on to moisture, but not saturated enough to where it causes root rot or anything like that. But it's very chunky and it allows just for good airflow. Roots need a good circulation of oxygen to exchange those gases in order to photosynthesize and all that kind of stuff. So that's why when you use like a nice chunky soil mixture, airflow is absolutely crucial for root development and growth. So when I use it in the perlite prop boxes, or if I use it as a standalone, like my anthurium, I've been growing that as well as some other alocasias in just straight perlite. I will fertilize them in the pots occasionally, like I would with watering. So every maybe few waterings during the growing season, I'll just saturate it with water and fertilizer. So I treat it very much like it is in soil, but that's why they do so well. They just get super strong roots. They're always the bright white roots. They're super healthy because of airflow. If you have just like a very dense soil, those roots can't breathe, and that's how you lead to root rot. Now with perlite, I do have to water a bit more frequently than I would with soil, but I'm okay with that for right now. I think I'm going to keep my anthurium and alocasias in the 2 that I have. Two or three that I have, I'm going to keep them in perlite, but that's why they do so well, is just the constant airflow to the root system is just super healthy. So I think that's going to be pretty much it for this video. If you have any comments or questions, oh, I forgot to show my water propagations. Stand by. I just have some philodendron micans propagating in water. These have been in here for quite some time. You can see the roots are starting to encircle. They are all individual leaf cuttings. The reason why I did this is because I had a smaller plant. It started to die back a little bit, so I quickly chopped up the stem, and I want to make a bushy plant again. And then I already showed the pothos and the philodendron fuzzy petiole. So I think that's going to be pretty much it for this video. If you have any comments or questions, please leave a comment down below. If you want to see some more houseplant content, click this video right here. Otherwise, thanks again for watching. Take care, everyone. Bye.